the disruptions have been substantial. I think we have to acknowledge this. We had, at the height of the crisis, 1.5 billion young people locked out of their schools. And remote learning used to be an afterthought, certainly in school, also in higher education, and it's become sort of the lifeline of success. But I think one thing is very important. There has been lots of, both technological and social innovation. We've probably seen less reform in the last months, but certainly a lot more change. And some of this actually for the good. We have an entirely range of new learning experience that you can see now with virtual reality and artificial intelligence. You can actually see students doing experiments in a virtual laboratory rather than just learning about them in a traditional classroom. When you study mathematics on a computer, the computer can study you and figure out, where you're good at, where you're not so good at, what you find interesting, what you find boring, and then give you very personal kind of learning experiences. And that is the new normal that is now being possible. We can extend learning in the real world. Vocational education used to be sort of often the last resort for people. Now we can make it the most interesting digital experience. And again, some companies have done amazing work over the last 6 months to provide their students with virtual experience in the vocational sector when they had to close shop. Lots of really interesting things. The big issue, of course, is, to what extent are schools prepared to do this? What you can see, well, software exists, but, you look at the bottom of the list, you can see the kind of online learning support platforms is just available in about half of the classrooms in the OECD area. So you can imagine what this means, that students from disadvantaged backgrounds really are penalized. Technology, not, closing gaps, that's what you hope technology will do in the long run, but actually technology amplifying many of the social disparities. When you look at the effective online learning platforms, I already mentioned, it's less than half of the schools or just about half of the schools who have them with huge variation. Now, the bigger question is, technology is always only as good as the people who use it. And when it comes to teachers having the necessary technical and pedagogical skills, you can see, again, huge variability. Number one, parts of China, the wealthy areas of China. Again, at the end of the scale, you can see countries like Iceland and Japan. So once again, even in high-tech countries, many teachers are not ready to actually deploy technology in the classroom. That's where the much harder challenge begins. Rolling out the technology is a very easy part, but actually getting people to adopt it, to use it, and to transform pedagogical practice is a very, very long road where we are just at the very beginning. Those different kind of scenarios mean for the goals and functioning of our education systems, of learning in general. What does it mean for the organization and the structures? What does it mean for teaching, in times of a pandemic? Will teachers retain their monopoly? Will they remain the people, who hold the knowledge and communicate it? Will co-creation be the norm, where actually students and teachers work as a community? Lots of different, will we see an open market of, consumers who are also producers of knowledge, sharing kind of knowledge? What does all of this mean for governance or even geopolitics? What's the role of, organizations behind this? And then what does this mean for public authorities? I don't have the time to go through this in detail, but I do really think that in time in which we live, we need to think much sort of more courageously about alternative futures for learning, for education, and how we can best serve them through educational institutions. Thank you very much.